Welcome to another episode of Southern Arizona's nonprofits, the superheroes impacting our community, brought to you by SCIP, SSCIP, the social service contractor indemnity pool, insuring nonprofits like ours for more than 3 decades. This is Barbara McClure. I'm the host of this show and also the executive director of Impact of Southern Arizona. And today I have with me 2 local leaders promoting and supporting adaptive athletics in our Tucson region. So please join me in welcoming Mia Harman, Executive Director of Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports.
Thank you. And you almost got Mia Hansen, but I probably rewrote it for you.
Oh. Mia Hansen. Did I say Mia Harman?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that so
Some
funny?
people say Mia Hamm for the famous soccer player.
That might be why.
That, can confuse
I had a
me.
son who played soccer, so that would be a likely slip. But
Happy to be here.
Mia Hansen, yes, thank you. And then also with us is Peter Hughes. He's the athletic director at the University of Arizona Adaptive Athletics. And these 2 organizations work together to provide athletic opportunities for people with disabilities. They encourage people to be active at many different levels, from general movement and exercise for health and wellness to competition in leagues, professional sporting teams, and events. So today we're going to talk about what their organizations do and all the incredible things you're going to be surprised by. So Mia, I thought I'd start with you and have you explain to us exactly what adaptive sports is and how it's different than general sports.
Indeed. Well, I started adapting my sports when I realized I couldn't run and jump like I used to back in my youth. I've been a dancer and an athlete all my life, and at a certain point, as we age a little bit, and I started getting arthritis and then eventually end-stage osteoarthritis in both hips, I realized, wow, I'm really not able to do everything I love doing. How can I keep doing it without a lot of ibuprofen, right? And so I discovered adaptive sports myself. It actually started long ago when I was 17 and my brother Mark was 21, and he had a life-changing incident where he dove into a river and broke his neck at the C6 and 7 level and instantly became paralyzed from the chest down. Our family had always been very active at playing everything, tennis, running track, playing soccer, doing it all. And the initial shock, getting through an incident like that for my brother was tough. But once he started recovering and recuperating, the first thing we got into was adaptive sports, or playing sports in a little different way, basically just using different equipment, sometimes changing the rules a little bit. And we found out that it makes no difference if you're playing tennis in a wheelchair or you're standing on your feet. It's still tennis. It's still fun. It's recreational. You're getting out. You're moving. So for our family and for me personally, I've also played wheelchair tennis, wheelchair basketball. I'm still able to stand on my feet, but it does still hurt a little bit. So it's been a lot of fun for me personally to expand my horizons as I age a bit, and to support my brother, Mark, through his 42 years of playing all sorts of adaptive sports. I guess the word adaptive, right? We adapt it in some ways. So whether that's using a wheelchair instead of your feet, or whether that's using a special hand grip to hold a tennis racket. For example, my brother tapes his tennis racket onto his hand because he doesn't have complete grip. So he's adapting his grip of the tennis racket. Or using, for example, there's a great game called goal ball, which is played for the blind and visually impaired, where you have a ball that has little bells and whistles in it, basically, so people can hear where the ball is. So in my mind, adapting and adaptive sports are just changing things a bit to make sure that you can still play and have fun and recreate as you would always want to do with whatever you got.
And I think we can all do that. Excuse me, it is allergy season in Tucson. I like the definition, though, because it's, like you say, everybody adapts how they play sports as we age. So that's a very good description. And I know Tucson has a huge adaptive sports presence, thanks to your 2 programs. So I was interested in hearing you describe the types of sporting programs that you offer. And so, Pete, I know you're with the University of Arizona, and honestly, I didn't even know that you had an adaptive sports program or I was surprised to find out how much goes on at the U of A that way.
Yeah, we're the largest program in the nation for a university-based adaptive sports program. It's pretty exciting to be part of. And we offer 8, right now we have 8 fully sponsored teams, including men's and women's wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis, wheelchair rugby, hand cycling, adaptive golf, adaptive swimming, and I know I'm forgetting something.
Track and field.
Yeah, wheelchair track and road racing. So, and our athletes, a majority of them are all full-time students at the University of Arizona, and they travel all around the United States and sometimes even internationally competing around the United States and around the world, really. And fortunately, originally the University of Arizona was in charge of running everything with adaptive athletics, and that wasn't sustainable. So Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports came in with Mia Hansen here, and that's where our partnership really has bloomed. So I have student athletes that might come here that are not quite ready for the University of Arizona. They could go to Pima and work through Mia's program, still staying fit. And then when my athletes graduate and they want to stay and live in Tucson because it's a beautiful place and a supportive community, they can go back to Mia's group and play for Mia again. So it's a perfect world that we're creating here in Tucson, Arizona.
It's a mecca. I got to say, Pete and I have known each other for about 7 or 8 years now. I first got to know Pete while I was getting back into sports. Little backup, my career has been in dance all my life. I studied at the University of Oregon. Go Ducks. Sorry, I have to say that for the Wildcats. Whenever the Wildcats and the Ducks play each other, I'm a Duck.
Sure, that's fair.
Yes. But I went into dance and had a wonderful career being a choreographer, stage manager, producer, director. That's what caused my hip injuries, obviously.
Sure.
But I came back to recreation and sports later in life because it's really my first love, just being active and moving as part of a healthy lifestyle. And when I met Pete about 7 years ago, I was volunteering at the time, working with some of our cultural festivals here in town. I used to run a little festival called Tucson Meet Yourself, also known as Tucson Eat Yourself, and worked with Big Jim Griffith for many years doing cultural festivals, folk life festivals, and that's really part of my dance passion is folk dances of the world. So I was working with refugees who were resettling in our community at the time, and I was starting to volunteer to help refugees adapt and transition to becoming Americans, right? And I said, hey, I kind of know something about wheelchairs. My brother knew something about it. Give me all of the refugees with disabilities, and we'll help them adapt, because it's a challenge if you're coming to this country brand new. You'd think it might be easy, but it's actually sometimes more difficult for refugees coming from Somalia, Uganda, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, the Congo. In their countries, as a person with a disability, often they are treated as inhuman, not even given names, but it's the girl who can't see or the guy who's got crutches. And I found that refugees coming here with disabilities were struggling because suddenly they're thrust into America where, hey, we've got ADA rules and everybody's the same. And they thought, no, we're not. How do I adapt? So I was looking for a way to break the ice, and I said, adaptive sports. Found Pete and his program. At the time, Pete was the head coach of the championship women's wheelchair basketball team at the U of A. I think 5-time champs, 10-time, a lot of championships with that team. And I had a young woman from Somalia who I was mentoring, young gal, 19 years old, just arrived, had no family. They were all, killed in violence. And she didn't speak English. I didn't speak Somali. I said, what am I going to do to get this girl moving? And first couple of days I was with her, I'm trying to Google Somali English, which doesn't work very well. And I said, what do you like? And what do you like to do? She said, NBA, LeBron James. I said, what? You know about NBA? Yeah, LeBron James, the best. I thought, okay, she's into basketball. Somehow this young lady had a passion for basketball. So I found Pete. And I said, Pete, I got this young gal, and took her out to a party at the park one day, and I think you had some hand cycles out there. And she jumped on a hand cycle, which is a regular tricycle with hand pedals. You power it with your arms. She'd never been in a wheelchair before she got to America, and she took off in that hand cycle so fast. She was headed for the street, and I'm running after her, and Pete said, who is that gal? I want her on my basketball team. Right. Always the recruiter, Pete.
There you go.
From that point on, we started becoming good friends and partners, and then I realized a few years into the relationship that that we needed a community adaptive sports program to support what the U of A has been doing for so many years and letting people of all ages have that opportunity. So Rahana is still with us. She's a Somali athlete, and now she's an American. 7 years later, she's become a citizen. She's playing wheelchair basketball with our community team now.
That's so
after having
cool.
been on the U of A team for a few years. And so on it goes.
Well, that's interesting, too, when you say the university's been doing it for a long time. So how long has that program been in place?
The program's been around since like 1975.
Wow.
Yeah. It started with wheelchair basketball originally, and then wheelchair rugby came along, and wheelchair tennis. And for a long time, it was those three sports. And that's where and then when Coach Brown moved here in, I think, 1999, 98, he brought wheelchair track and road racing with him. And then when I took over 3 years ago, we've just decided that it doesn't matter what your disability is or what your sport is, we're going to, if we can do it in Tucson, we're going to support it. So, that means some form of scholarship assistance for athletes with disabilities, and it also means whatever sport. So that's why we started adaptive swimming, adaptive golf, which is our new showcase. In fact, our athletes are up in Mesa right now at the Disability Golf Championships in Mesa, and they're having a great time. But that allows me to not only just help wheelchair sports users, like wheelchair users like myself, but also individuals that might have an arm amputation or visually impaired. There's visually impaired blind golfers, and I had no idea about this 3-4 years ago. And then the blind golfing championship was down in Green Valley. I said, I got to go down and look at that. And I was like, oh, these guys are amazing. And these gals, they're hitting the golf ball better than I, and they don't even see it. And that's, in some ways really discouraging.
I know. I tried golf for a while, so I can appreciate that.
But I also thought, hey, man, if I could get one of these guys to hit a hole-in-one on ESPN, then I won't have to fundraise anymore.
Gosh, that's so true.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. But again, it came back to, well, how do I tell community members that they can no longer... University of Arizona, like I said, absorbed everything, community and non-community. I said, how can we do that? And we had a local wheelchair basketball team that I was part of, the Tucson Lobos, and they almost folded, and Mia came and saved them and then created this amazing program that has, they have wheelchair tennis, community wheelchair tennis, and community golf and community. So now it doesn't matter what your disability or whether you're a student or not, there's somebody that's going to help support you here in the community. So it's great. But
I want to just chime in. Think about this, that students with a disability can get scholarships, and that you have produced so many scholarship athletes who are moving on to get careers, which is an interesting fact. You have some facts about the combination of sports and education with disability and getting employment, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a small study that was done by a colleague of ours, Dr. Mike Cottingham, who went to U of A, got his degree at U of A, was our wheelchair tennis coach here, and now he's at the University of Houston. But his study on employment and wheelchair users, so specifically wheelchair users, so spinal cord injury, polio, whatever it would be, spina bifida, their employment rate was 18%, which is pathetically low in our opinion, right? And, the ADA gets you into the building, but the ADA is also supposed to help with employment, so it hasn't quite gotten there yet. So we did some more studies on that. That was their employment rate, 18%. You add education, and it goes up to 23%.
Nice.
Which is a little jump. But if you add education and sport, it goes up to 52%, 53%.
Wow, isn't that something?
It's a giant jump. So the state of Arizona, which is one of the only states in the nation that actually supports adaptive athletics at the university. So when they asked me to go up and be, in front of their finance board and be an expert witness, they said, well, why would the state of Arizona support adaptive athletics? And we would say, well, this is why, because we're employing people, and we got to do more studies on it. We have to sanction some more studies on it. But the fact of the matter is that nearly everybody that I graduated, I came to U of A in 2004. I already had my degrees, but I wanted to play wheelchair basketball. So almost everybody that has gone through our program that has graduated has a job. And for a person with a disability, that's a powerful thing. And we have a great partnership with SAAS and our accessible. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I was going to ask you a quick question, though, too,
sure.
because for somebody who doesn't really have a severe disability, well, as you say, Mia, we all have those little disabilities as we age. Right. I actually decided to do recreational soccer when I was in my 30s. I just thought it would be fun, low-key, but it turned out not to be that at all. It was those women were murderous, slide tackling, and I ended up severing an Achilles tendon, which cut my golf because I couldn't walk on the uneven ground for many years, and then I just never got back into it at all. But I think that when, it's interesting because you're naming so many sports. So I would say generally people are so familiar with wheelchair basketball because it's been around, it's been very visual, and we've seen it. But your idea of golf, or your conversation about golf, the idea of trying to hit that golf ball without being able to see it, or just even what tennis would look like. Tennis is such a quick game, back and forth on one side of the court with no teammates on your side, maybe. And so it's interesting, I think, for our audience to kind of just stop and for a minute try to visualize what those sports look like for people who are adapting it in a new way.
Well, the major difference between basketball, for wheelchair basketball, and for able-bodied basketball is that as of this moment, right now, as we're sitting here, I have never seen a wheelchair basketball dunk a basketball yet. And if we can find that person that can do that,
there you go.
So
or a share with springs or something,
Right, because we'll make some money on that one. But the other, so there's a little bit of difference with the traveling rule, but we play, on a regulation basketball court with regulation 3-point lines and all that. Everybody goes, do you bring in the 3-point line? No, we don't bring the 3-point line in. No. So all that's the same. And then with tennis, it's 2 bounces versus 1. And I got to give a shout out to the USTA because what's unique about tennis is the USTA, which is the governing body of tennis in the United States, they'll allow, so if there's let's say at Reed Park, they're hosting a tennis tournament, they'll allow a guy in a wheelchair and you get 2 bounces. So I could play against you with 2 bounces. Gotcha. So that's a strong promotion. Now, we typically try to go wheelchair versus wheelchair, but, it's just a strong way of saying, hey, look, we see you, we adapt for you, and we're inclusive in our sport, because everybody should have the opportunity to be healthy and compete, and, it's one of those things.
Absolutely. It's sort of, it's radical access for everyone. I mean, the idea that you should be able to do whatever you want, wherever and however you want. Again, back to equipment, if you haven't seen or you haven't tried it, one of the things that we really promote is anybody can play. We don't exclude able-bodied people from our sports, which is interesting. When you think about inclusion, if we were exclusive, then we wouldn't be walking the walk or talking the right. So we absolutely invite, especially family and friends and siblings. We host the Juniors Active in Wheelchair Sports Program, also known as JAWS. And Pete started that here, and then we took that on. And at JAWS practices, everybody plays, mom, dad, kids, siblings. And oftentimes that's just so rewarding. Say you have a child with a disability who's been using a wheelchair all their young life. They're left on the sidelines often. If you want to go hiking, okay, we can't really hike, on the path because Susie here can't get on it. Or if your able-bodied siblings are out playing all of their sports and you can't play with them, that's really challenging, and we find that when everyone's included, it's wild. It's great. It breaks down the barriers. Everybody has a good time. It's just another piece of equipment, right? So everybody learns how to push the chair. And so if anybody out there's listening and wants to come try it, we are totally open to that. We also have really built our program, Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports. Pete said SAAS. We're sassy, right?
Sure.
One of the big things we've built is a loaner equipment program. So I found that one of the biggest barriers to participation is not having a sports chair. Back 70 years ago when wheelchair basketball was first, quote, invented, everyone was playing in those hospital folding Everest and Jennings chrome chairs, right? It was heavy and people were smashing their legs to each other. After World War II, basically. Nowadays, sports chairs are like the highest end Nike shoe you can buy. They are lightweight, made of aluminum or titanium. There's no brakes. You don't need any brakes. There's nothing extra. It's pared down to just what you need. The frames are strong, durable. I think a lot of them are made out of aircraft aluminum. Yeah. And the wheels, The difference is that the wheels are angled outward at the bottom. It's called camber, so that you have a better turning radius. You can turn quicker just by touching your wheel. You can pivot. So back to your tennis idea, tennis wheels are really angled way out at the bottom, almost an 18-degree camber.
Wow.
So you can really turn quickly, and you are strapped into this chair with straps and things, so you don't almost have to touch the wheels. You can just move your hips and turn. It's fantastic.
The chair needs to fit you like a glove, you know, and so that when you move, so it's. I don't have a sports chair with me right now, but you know, if I had a basketball and a sports chair, I could take 2 pushes and then dribble up and down the court by just moving my hips and keeping the chair moving without touching the wheels.
That is cool.
Yeah, it is.
It's so fun. Kids who jump into a wheelchair for the first time love it. I mean, who doesn't love rolling fast and crashing into someone, right? And if you really want to have fun, go play wheelchair rugby, because there you do tackle each other.
That's the one sport. When you said wheelchair rugby, I was trying to envision how that would look. You know?
Yeah, wheelchair rugby. We're the 2-time national champions, and
oh my gosh,
Wildcats.
The three of our athletes are going to the Paralympics here in 98 days. I think 98 days.
Coming up soon.
The 2020 Paralympics held in 2021. You know, so that's great. But so they're actually right now at a training camp right now for the Paralympics, the rugby team. And rugby, if you want to know more about wheelchair rugby, there's a famous old documentary called Murder Ball. Its original name was Murder Ball, and you can still stream that. And it's very well done. It was nominated for Best Documentary, lost to Morgan Freeman and March of Penguins. That's why we don't like penguins in the disability community.
Emperor penguins.
Yeah, those cute.
That was a fun documentary, I have to say, but the other sounds very interesting.
Rugby is played on a court, a basketball court, 4 people on a team, and it is specifically for people who are affected in all 4 limbs. So it's also called quad rugby, quadriplegia.
Oh, okay.
So it is one of the few made-up sports that was actually invented for people with quadriplegia, with disabilities. So it's not like any other sport. It's not quite like rugby. It's not quite like hockey. It's a combination of tackling, meaning running into each other. With the chairs are very different. They're built with strong kind of cowcatcher, armor on them. You can tackle. You can fall. You can grab in. Yeah, and you try to get the ball, which is a volleyball, basically across the end zone. So there's 2 cones down under the key of the basketball. Great sport, a lot of fun. My brother played rugby for many years, and I played too, to have some. If you really want to have some fun again, so that's another one of those. You asked what the difference is. That sport wasn't adapted. It was really created, and I think we might have do we have any other created, made up sports for?
For wheelchair sports specifically, I'm not positive about that. Because you could say wheelchair racing.
Wheelchair racing is a different type of chair.
Racing, yeah.
But wheelchair softball, that's another sport that we played just like regular softball, 16-inch softball, except instead of grass, we play it on an asphalt parking lot.
I was thinking 4-wheel drive.
Right.
Like road tires.
And instead of a little tiny base, the base is a circle that's about 6 feet wide, so you don't run into each other, right? So you have a place you have to cross. But other than that, the game is basically the same.
I know they play wheelchair cricket. I've seen that in Australia, and also the NFL just announced the first formation of a NFL-sponsored wheelchair football program. So there's 4 teams: LA, Chicago, Atlanta, and Phoenix.
That's exciting.
And I had won the last couple titles, so I was really excited when we used to play in Las Vegas there was a prize and all that. So anyhow, I'm very excited that that's happening.
Well, I'd love to see that the NFL is getting into it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. But right now it's only in NFL-affiliated schools, cities. So it was kind of funny because I was like, I know I could put together a championship team in football, no problem.
But we don't have an
we don't have an affiliated team. So
well, as you
Aren't
can
we
hear,
close enough to Phoenix? Don't we call ourselves, the other,
we are
the step
highly
child of Phoenix, or the?
I guess as you can hear, pretty much all the sports you can think of have some variation for people who have a mobility challenge. But we also don't want to scare people off. We're not just about football and tackling each other. We also do recreational pursuits. And with our organization, Southern Arizona Adaptive Sports, we've also tried to reach out to the community to engage people who are aging, perhaps, who don't have that kind of energy or aren't really enthusiastic about playing basketball, with the boys. We've been doing bird watching. Now, you'd think birding's for everybody, right? What do we need to adapt that for? But a lot of birds live out there in the woods where they don't have paved pathways, and so we've encouraged the Tucson Audubon Society to think about birding field trips which have accessible pathways where everybody with any kind of mobility challenge could participate, or to have a guide for someone who's visually impaired, to have a guide along who can help identify bird calls and describe what the bird is that we're seeing. So, it's back to putting yourself, I guess, in the position of someone who may have a disability. If you don't, it like when you had your Achilles tendon problem, I'm assuming you might have been on crutches for a while, maybe a wheelchair, and oftentimes that's the first experience a lot of people get, and they go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how hard it was," and we say, "See, we told you so," and come on and join us. So
sure,
we don't want to discourage or become exclusionary. We want to just be inclusive at all levels, and that's really what it's about.
Sure.
We've done a great job of that here in Tucson.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it's interesting. I've only lived in Tucson, this is my 12th year, but I haven't even been aware of that these things are going on, which is the point of the show, to introduce these nonprofits and these organizations that are so amazing to the community.
Most of the community knows us primarily from the old Lame for a Game days. We had 25 years of that at the University of Arizona, where we were played with the able-bodied guys. Now we're the pregame show for the Red Blue, and this year obviously it was canceled. And then, of course, in October we have a big foot race, which is a giant fundraiser for us, the Gym Click Run and Roll on October 4th this year. So you come on down, jog, or you can do it virtually if you want to. So.
It could be that things are just happening normally amongst us, which is the whole point.
Exactly.
I just want to toss in one more point here, that oftentimes people will say, "Oh, the Special Olympics, yeah, we've really helped you guys out a lot." And we say, well, no, we're not the Special Olympics, which is a wonderful organization that has built up an incredible support system around working with people with developmental and cognitive disabilities. Specifically, our two organizations primarily are working and offering sports for people with physical disabilities. Now, if someone also has a cognitive disability and can act, operate independently, basically, we will certainly include them. But Special Olympics also is fabulous, and they're here and they're very strong in Tucson, and that's another reason why Tucson has become such a great place to get out and move and operate if you have any sort of challenge like that, because we have everything. We got it all.
Well, and it's such a beautiful place to be outdoors. So that's a very cool thing. Well, I'd like to take just a break for just a minute to hear some information from our sponsor, Skip.
Today's program is brought to you by Skip, the Social Service Contractors Indemnity Pool. Skip is a member-owned, member-directed insurance provider with more than 3 decades of insuring Arizona social service organizations for their property, general and professional liability, and auto claim exposures. With an Arizona-based staff of claim underwriting and risk management professionals, Skip specializes in providing personalized service, affordable premiums, and coverage which meets and often exceeds the state of Arizona's contract requirements for social service providers. For more information, visit our website at www.sscip.org or ask your insurance agent about protecting your organization with insurance coverage through Skip.
Pete, I was going to ask you, welcome back, everyone. I was going to ask Pete a question about all the teams. You were talking about the different teams, and I think you used the word sponsor. My head was saying, do your teams have sponsors? Do you get a lot of support from the local businesses or...
We have some great supporters here in Tucson, and I apologize. What I meant was the University of Arizona, they pay for our salaries, my coaching staff and my salary. And then independently, we have to raise all of the money for our operating budgets. Okay. So we do have some great sponsors. Jim Click is the number one guy, and the Lupke family, who's involved with Pima Medical Institute. They've been very very, very, very grateful for them. Alan Shankin, and many others. So, we do our fundraisers. Both our organizations do our fundraisers. We're now supported by the state of Arizona. If we raise $160,000, they'll match that. And those are restricted funds for scholarships, equipment, transportation and uniforms. A problem we have logistically is that the University of Arizona is the farthest college program on the West Coast. Sure. So we have to fly everywhere, whereas the other schools and organizations, they'll jump in a giant bus and charter everywhere. Sometimes it's better for recruiting, say, hey, we're going to fly there. But
not a bad perk.
Yeah. And so now, and the university is really supportive, and I did want to bring up the fact that we're the only university, as far as I know, that has 3 accessible concession stands. And I was offered to run that with our athletes, and I knew we couldn't do it. And so I called Mia. I said, Mia, you got to run this for us. You got to run it for us. And it's been really quite, until COVID, of course, it was very successful, right?
It was. And Pete's talking, of course, about the University of Arizona, which it's fantastic what they have built. And some of the sponsors, like Mr. Jim Click, is a fabulous person who has been so generous with so many nonprofits in our community. Our organization is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and so I don't get state of Arizona funding.
Right.
I don't get salaries paid for by anybody, so we're in a whole different ball field, but we're still competing. I love it. Pete and we both have competitive spirits. The town is big enough for the 2 of our organizations, which is the handshake that Pete and I have made over these past years, because we have to have community opportunities, right?
Yes.
Not everybody's a university student, and so our fundraising model is based on what all good nonprofits should be, a mixture of grant writing, which I do all of that. So I write for grants all the time. And I've been successful with some. And, of course, you have to write for everyone. You get a lot of no thank yous. Some private donations. We don't have a huge amount of private donations, probably because we've done a not so good job of getting the word out. You said you haven't heard about us. I got to get better at that. So thanks for having us on the radio show here, Radio X. So private donations, we're trying to build that. And by the way we do that is by telling people of our story. And I've been doing a lot of publicity, just getting the word out about other aspects of our program that tend to draw people in even more so. One of them is a new thing we've started doing called Project Renew, where we are now accepting donations of used everyday wheelchairs, both the folding, basic, collapsible type that you probably used when you sprained or your Achilles tendon, to the much higher level, rigid frame, lightweight, everyday chair that an active wheelchair user might use. We'll take any kind of donation of wheelchairs, and we refurbish them with our community athletes. And we definitely dove into this during COVID because we had to stop everything. For a year and months, we haven't played any sports. Indoor sports, at least. We played outdoor sports. I guess that's why golfing has gotten so big. Yeah. But and hand cycling has been huge for us. But we had to find other ways to keep our community members active and engaged and not socially isolated like so many of us were. It can even that can be expounded upon when you're a person living with a disability who may have a lot more immune compromisation in your immune system. You can't fight off the bug. So we started this Project Renew to get people thinking of, hey, let's get wheelchairs, let's donate them, let's fix them up and get them back to people in need. It's been a huge success. So huge that now I'm getting 50 wheelchairs a month from Goodwill Industries.
Sure.
Love Goodwill. They've done a great thing by giving us all of their donated wheelchairs. They can't really sell them for very much anyway, so if anybody wants one, we'll give you one for free. And it's incredible. We've had so many people follow us now. We've had a few, publicity coverages from local media outlets, and I'm just really grateful because that has allowed me to open up and start to speak more about the benefits of adaptive sports and recreation and activity, just being socially engaged. You don't have to come and play the sport. You can also just come and watch and be around other people who might be dealing with a similar issue that you're dealing with. We started a couple of peer mentor support groups this year during COVID. We had the Amputee Tucson. It's called Amp Power Tucson. We started doing Zoom meetings with them and really brought a lot of people together who wanted to talk about limb loss and how it was making them feel. And now we're having an adaptive golf day with Pete's U of A golfers this coming Sunday out at Rolling Hills Golf Course with our community members, and a lot of them are amputees. coming to us through Hanger Clinic, one of our
sure.
sponsors. Yay!
I'm familiar with Hanger.
Yeah. So we go out and also get sponsors. The third part, besides grants and individual donations, is sponsorship. And, we're always grateful. We also got a new sponsor recently, Ascension wheelchair lifts. Wonderful company right here in Tucson making incredible wheelchair lifts, elevators. And they found out about us and said, hey, we want to help. And I said, well, we'd love you to help. And they're going to sponsor our El Tour de Tucson hand cycling team, community members,
Very
to
cool.
hand cycle. But what Pete was alluding to, the other phase is that we expect our athletes and participants to participate, to be active, to volunteer. So we took over this concessions stand that Pete introduced us to, and the U of A had remodeled a football stadium. And when they remodeled, of course, when you do any remodeling, you must provide for accessibility, ADA requirements. So they built one end of the concession stand to be more accessible, so wheelchair users could get to the popcorn machine and make nachos.
Sure.
Who doesn't want to make nachos, right? Everybody wants to. So we have been staffing that with 15 volunteers every home football game, making nachos and selling popcorn and sodas. And, of course, the cashier booths are slightly lower, and there's room to push your wheelchair up underneath it, right? We can have interpreters, sign language interpreters, if someone needs that. But, give me a hot dog. That's not too tough to figure out, right? So we have had so much fun with that. All of our participants get to volunteer, and then the U of A concessions gives us a contribution back for the man hours.
Sure.
So it helps everybody. We also do that.
It's a great win-win, really.
Oh, it is. We also do it at the 4th Avenue Street Fair, which unfortunately has been canceled for a couple times. But we provide the perimeter security to make sure people don't leave the outskirts with their alcohol, right? And for that, we've also gotten
I can't wait till one of your guys has to tackle somebody that's trying to smuggle a beer off the
I know.
street.
We did great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's going to be wonderful.
They'll take them by surprise, I'm sure.
But what's most important, in my humble opinion, about the concessions, I mean, I know the contributions to the organization are much needed and very successful. Yeah. But really, it's the social perspective that you're now at a football game in front of 50,000 people, right. And these guys are working, and they're working in wheelchairs, and so that changes. Like, there's still people out there that think, oh, a wheelchair person can't do that, or a wheelchair person can't do that, and so that's the fun thing. So Mia and I September 2 years ago, I guess, September 2 years ago, with another organization that I run, we went to Indonesia together, and we donated 11 sports chairs and put on coaching clinics. And we do that to different countries because their social perception of people with disabilities, you can't do anything. Here in the United States, we're a little bit more advanced, although it's still out there occasionally. So we're trying to change the perception through sport. So if I can hit a three-point shot in a wheelchair and you can't, and you're standing, then it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm judging a book by the cover instead of really looking into this, and through that we have a lot of fun with it.
The ice breaking portion is great, but it really is important. Even here in Tucson, Arizona, we still have, unfortunately, stereotypes.
Of course.
And
they're everywhere.
Yeah, so, making nachos, you can do that from a wheelchair, believe me.
And that's what I like about it. Like you're saying, it's the visibility for the public to see people everywhere doing everything is so important. And I was thinking about your comment about employable and the numbers, your statistics. Yeah. And I would think that people who have a disability who have been able to be successful in something, or in more than just something, but in a sport, but then also in education, and I think to be competitive in a sport and have some wins under your belt must really be a confidence builder. And then, even working at the concession stand and interacting with the public and having a lot of positive feedback and a very good experience would help them in a career. I would think they would naturally be the people who would be out there and ready to tackle things, if you would.
Yeah, I think the accountability is an issue too. Like, because if you grow up in a family, my family never did this; they didn't care about me that much. But
oh, they did too.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
they cared about me, but they were like, "What?
In a different way.
You want milk? Go get it yourself."
Okay.
So that was the kind of thing. But in some worlds, we're I need to take care of that person. I need to take care of them, and they don't learn how to take care of themselves. Well, when they come to the U of A adaptive athletics, or if they come to SAAS adaptive athletics, we're not taking care of. They got to stand or
You're
sit
telling them to get their own milk?
on their own wheels. Yeah, they got to get their own milk. That's right. They can make their own breakfast. They're going to make their own beds, and it shows a little bit of accountability. So concession stands, hey, you got to be there an hour before, or an hour. Got to stay an hour late.
And yes, you have to clean the grill. Yep.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else, you can do it.
Well, you can, and it just goes through every. If you have children, right? When you have to teach your kids, and so we definitely impart a lot of life skills through these things. And who wants to be rehabilitated? I hear, we're going to put you through a rehabilitation program and you're going to learn how to redo things. No, you want to have fun. You want to enjoy your life, and you don't want to be taught and told that this is how you're going to do it. You want to experience it yourself. I think that's the way I approach life. So our program also tries to really encourage people to lead, if that's the way they want to go. Our board of directors, which is 9 people, is 90% people who identify with a disability. 60% women go. We're minority-led,
that's pretty cool.
Women-led. And, that's really important for me and for us to lead and be speaking for the community that we're serving. And it's been a lot of fun. The concession stands, we do miss that, but we're looking for other opportunities. If there are people listening who might have an idea, might have a concept, a model, we'd love to volunteer at your event once events come back, and maybe we can work out a little deal where everyone can win.
There you go.
Yeah.
That sounds like a fun thing.
Another important thing that we do, we have not done this year, but things that we've done at university, and I know the MIA's group does it too, is we'll go out to schools and to organizations and talk about anti-bullying and that kind of stuff and disability awareness.
Absolutely. Sure. Our JAWS program, our junior program, we offer for any school. We'll come out and sort of do a adaptive PE takeover where we bring out our 20 wheelchair sports chairs and everybody plays and everybody learns, and then our athletes talk about, hey, what's it like to be using a wheelchair or to be a person with a prosthetic leg or to be blind, and we just talk openly with kids about that, which is great because it allows the person who's given the presentation to gain confidence. Like you said, it's presentation skills, it's employability. And it's also creating an empathy, if you will, and an attitude change in our community. Because those kids go home and say, hey, Mommy, I played wheelchair basketball today. What? You don't use a wheelchair? Yeah, it didn't matter. It was great. I played wheelchair basketball. It was hard, but I loved it.
Sure.
So, the kids realize, this is just normal. Everyone can play basketball, right? And if we can't change... Our adults have a harder time changing our minds, I think, and our attitudes than children.
I totally agree with you. I think that's very true. And I was wondering about, how kids find their way in the community to the university program. So I wondered if there were schools, high schools that have those kinds of programs, or if it's just kind of non-existent, or cities don't have recreation programs.
Where I grew up in California, adaptive PE is a requirement, and here I think it's only a requirement if it's state. I think like Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind have adaptive PE, but that's it. And so
it's not a requirement. We're hitting a sore spot here,
right?
Well, that's good to know. People are listening, so...
Yeah, because if they had adaptive PE teachers all throughout, we could just go directly to them and say, hey, make sure you tell us. But sometimes they're fully included, sometimes they're omitted from their physical education. And obviously, I'm a former PE teacher, so we could get into this if we wanted to. We won't. But... So really, you want to know how kids find out about our programs?
Yeah.
Mia Hansen and Pete Hughes stop them on the street.
We do.
We do illegal turns in streets, and we pull over. And I got one young kid, I saw him walking on crutches outside a yogurt shop, and I nearly killed about 7 people doing a U-turn, right? And then we had another one of our athletes. We have a superstar growing up here in Tucson. I'm positive she'll be a Paralympian. She's in Mia's juniors program. that one of the kids said, hey, you should try wheelchair tennis. And next thing I know, I get a knock on my door and, can you fit her for a chair? Yeah, all right, let's fit her for a chair. Hey, can she play this? Yeah, she can play this. Yeah, and now she's good. And now she's talking trash to all the Paralympians. She has a following and all that stuff. So it's kind of exciting. But right now, we need your help. Like, so if you're listening to us right now and you have a kid that has any type of physical disability at all, please make sure that they contact either myself or Mia. And either one. Sometimes I feel like I should carry your cards around.
we can carry each other's cards. Well, that's it. It's word of mouth, and we do every time I'm in a grocery store, we shamelessly just say, "Hey, have you ever played wheelchair basketball? Who are you, weird lady?"
Yeah, don't talk to strangers. What is that?
So, some communities are the opposite. Have a lot of youth sports, but they struggle to get adults involved, and somehow. We have a lot of adults involved, but we still struggle. Our JAWS program, when we have kids come out, we may have 6 to 8 children, which is fine, but we want 20 to 30 children. And we're the only after-school wheelchair sports program in Southern Arizona, period. Our program. So there is no other place to go. You can't go to a middle school or high school and find wheelchair basketball.
So do you have a location then, Mia?
We don't, because we don't have enough money.
Because you're moving around.
To own a building like Pete does.
Yet.
Right. Well,
I don't
U of
know.
A. Okay. The U of A has
employer
facilities.
owns a building. Right. Sure.
We don't, but we do partner with the City of Tucson. So a shout out to the City of Tucson's Therapeutic Recreation Department has been offering us a gym over at the Donna Liggins Recreation Center for many years, and that's wonderful because the city does not offer their own wheelchair adaptive sports program. They have a very few offerings. They have a good adaptive swimming program, but they don't have what we offer. So they partner with us, and we are the experts who come in and lead the program as long as it's free and open to everybody, which it is.
Sure.
If we start, if we start charging a lot of money for people to come in, then they would say, "Hey, go rent your own gym." But we keep it free, and we let everybody, participate who wants to. Now, when we have our teams that travel, they may have a participation fee, which they can earn by doing concessions.
There you go.
Right. But otherwise, we really love that partnership, and we've also been grateful to get some support from Pima County. A couple years ago, I got an outside agency grant to provide junior, wheelchair sports, especially the equipment. Back to that. Some cities like Eugene, Oregon, have a recreation program that owns all this equipment, which is fabulous. Our city does not own it, which maybe is okay because we're here to fill in and we keep track of it and we make sure that we fit it to people. So we're really partnering with the city, with Pima County, and with the U of A, of course. So it's a really nice, pipeline that we have. We get the kids, they go to the U of A, they get their scholarship, they come back, they work for me for a while, and they can live here, and everybody's happy.
It's terrific. I think that's really the what makes Impact so successful, and what we do is that we partner with everyone in the community, and it really is amazing what you can do when you work with somebody else and you reach out to other people.
Tucson's a great place for partnerships, but we're also a little bit in our silos here. Somehow we have this chip on our shoulder. We like, I'm doing something really great, and I want to, keep it from everybody else. But the whole idea of partnership, back to that, we also partner with the VA, the Veterans Administration, and we've been lucky to get a Veterans Administration adaptive sports grant for the past couple of years to specifically help serve veterans with disabilities. So we have veterans on our teams, we have coaches who are veterans, and we can offer them support for travel and for equipment. And then, of course, youth, especially underserved youth, youth of color. We have grants that we've gotten that specifically serve those. So I find these little pots of money wherever I can grab them.
Sure.
And then I, like you do, I'm sure.
It is the trick to grant writing, to be really specific and find that funder who has a passion. And you would think there would be people, even people who have a disability, who would...
You never know till you ask, right? The number one reason people give is because they're asked. So we're asking anyone who's listening, they can reach me. Yeah. Can we give our information out?
You can, and actually it's going to be on the podcast website permanently, so no one has to write it down or worry about it, but you're welcome to do that.
Well, we have a website, which is SOAZ adaptivesports.org. And I'm Mia Hansen, and my name and number is all over that website. And we also do a lot of social media, primarily Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And, we're just open to anybody reaching out to us and finding us and interacting with us in whatever way they want to. We take cash donations. Did I mention that? Yeah, we're happy to accept cash, and we take things.
Equipment as well.
Sometimes it's amazing. People are, retiring their hand cycle, and they didn't know that we have this great program. We have 25 hand cycles. We're the only place that you could go and try a hand cycle that I know of in southern Arizona, right? And Pete's program has hand cyclists who are competing, and he's donated some of their old hand cycles to us so that we can, loan them out to future athletes to come to U of A. So it's really a great system, but we'll take them all.
So I have a really old bike, and just this last week I was biking up by the Christina Taylor Green Park, where I normally bike, and I see another person on a hand cycle, and I don't recognize her. And she's in the curb cutout, like where I have to go. And so I pulled up right behind her and said, "Move that hand cycle, lady." And it turned out to be Faith, who's one of yours. And she was borrowing your bike. She goes, "Yeah, I only have a month." And I'm like, "I think if you ask Mia, she'll give it to you for longer than a month."
She'll extend that.
But I won't say anything. So it was kind of funny. So I ran into one of yours.
And the U of A also, of course, like Pete said, has to raise funds for their programming, right?
Yeah, we sell our Gym Click auto tickets, and we do the Gym Click run and roll. We're looking for sponsors for the run and roll, and of course we just had a extraordinarily successful 2021 teed up shootout held at the Omni last month on the 19th. We raised $159,000 for a golf fundraiser.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
congratulations.
And it's been great, but that's a unique opportunity to actually golf with another adaptive golfer, and you actually get more of the culture that way of like being, playing 18 holes with somebody with a disability and losing. Most of them are losing. So,
oh my gosh, that's good. So fun.
Yeah. So we do great things. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think about all these athletes that are going to head off to the Paralympics here, like you say, in less than 100 days. And I think at the university, with this program being around so long, you must have some stars who've come through the university.
Yeah.
And maybe some names that people will recognize.
Well, I think our most famous, we have a couple famous ones. Dr. Sherry Blewett, who just got into our Adaptive Hall of Fame. She'll be out here receiving her as soon as COVID calms down. But Dr. Sherry Blewett was a multi-medal winner at the Paralympics, several Paralympics. And she left the U of A, went to Stanford, got her medical degree at Stanford. And then she one of the Doctors Without Borders in Ghana. And then now I think she works for Harvard Medical School. So yeah, she's done pretty well. Elena Nichols.
What a slacker.
Right. Elena Nichols, of course, is she's one of the only individuals in the world that's won a gold medal in both winter and summer Paralympics. Cool. So she was a downhill skier in the summertime in Tucson, had to play basketball.
Just going to say.
We don't support downhill skiing, surprisingly enough, in Tucson. And then we have several others that I'm sure I'm forgetting. Right now we have 7 active members of our program getting ready to go to the 2021 Paralympics, and we have 9 alum that are going to represent either USA, Australia, or Canada in this Paralympics. So we're really excited.
And what sport will they be doing?
Well, our tennis coach is going to his 3rd Paralympics in his tennis program for the tennis team. He's a quad in quad division. And then we have 3 wheelchair rugby guys that are qualified. Our new head coach, Josie, for our women's basketball team, and our assistant coach, Courtney Ryan, are both going for the women's wheelchair basketball team, right? And our track guys we have 1 track discus thrower, Sherrod, and then so I did forget about field, but he's a one-off.
Sure.
And then the U.S. time trials are in Minnesota at the end of June, so we expect at least 2 more athletes to qualify for the Paralympics. We'll see.
That's fun. Now, I don't know that I've seen the Paralympics on television.
You will.
Are they? I was going to say, how does the public find them this year?
This year, NBC has got more coverage than they will ever have before, and we'll have to share our information with you, because since you are not allowed to view the Paralympics in person this year, Japan has already decided that it's only Japanese citizens that get to go, so no family members or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take over some sports bars here. So if you're an owner of a sports bar, please contact me, because we will bring 50 people into your thing to watch the Paralympics. And we'll bring some of our former Paralympians to talk about and show off their gold medals and their silver medals as well. So contact us. And now Mia has got some Paralympians.
Oh, well, our president of our board of directors, Jen Poist, is a 2-time gold medalist at the Paralympics in wheelchair basketball. And we're of course aspiring. We want our athletes to aspire to be the best.
Sure.
But we're also fine with people watching the Paralympics and not making it there. It's not always about being the best. We do have a young gal, Pete mentioned Adrina, who is 12 and is going to be there, I'm sure, in either the next Paralympics or I guess you can't get into this one. And, a couple of our youngsters, just learning about it. We have a young boy named Ishmael, who's just recently joined us, and he didn't even know that there was such a thing as wheelchair sports and that he could be an athlete and he could go to the Paralympics. So it's really exciting, and we're just thrilled to have some great support and opportunities for people. But it doesn't happen without a lot of effort. You know this about all of our wonderful nonprofits in Tucson. It takes an incredible amount of energy and effort, and we're looking for people to help send us more energy. Money's good, but energy and enthusiasm and support is really what we'd love to invite your listeners to offer us.
We have a young man from Sholo, Arizona, coming down to look at our program this weekend. Just because he heard about us on some kind of news.
Some kind of social radio.
Social media.
Yeah, well, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we have the opportunity to get together and hear so much of what you're doing and learn some new things. Like I said, I didn't realize there were all those sports available, and it'll be fun now to watch the Paralympics. I think I'm definitely going to be tuned in.
Come to a sports bar with us.
So, that's what I should do. That's
true.
Announced,
yeah.
That's right. So we'll have to connect. I don't know. We'll have to see if we can put them up on the RadioX page for this show for episode 7 to see if we can do that.
And I should mention that sports are happening right now. We are back. We're playing wheelchair basketball again, which is one of our biggest sports. Our group has 4 wheelchair basketball teams, including 2 adult mixed co-ed, and we have the Arizona Storm women, who are potentially going to be champions of the women's division this year. This is separate from the university level. We have a community women's division, and several of them are wheelchair athletes from past Paralympics.
All coached by me, by the way.
That's right.
Well, no wonder they're so good, right, Pete?
But our Tucson Lobos, the thing that started this all, remember that group that was about to falter that I jumped in and said, let's go, guys. We're going to go to Nogales, Sonora this weekend, and we're going to play with the Sonoran League. Teams from Hermosillo, from Nogales, from Ciudad Obregón, from Rocky Point are going to converge in Nogales. And, so sports are back. We're being safe, of course. We're getting vaccinated. We're masking up. But, we're all anxious to come back to the time when we can all be together and recreate together. So we're excited about that this weekend. So go Lobos.
There you go. Well, thank you both.